Between Two Bikes.
Welcome to Between Two Bikes. Where are we, by the way, today?
So Kenny and I are sitting outside the Hollywood Bowl, and we, it's gated off to cars, but if you're on a bike, you can go lots of places.
You can go anywhere.
Yeah.
Just about anywhere.
Yeah. So we're back up in the parking lot of the Hollywood Bowl. This is the bandstand behind me. It's a really fun place to come see a show when we're not in the middle of the pandemic.
Jed, what are you riding?
2019 R1250GS.
How do you like it?
I love it.
What are some of the things that you like about it?
These bikes, these GSs or GS Adventures, handle really well. They've got great power, and they can do the job on road really well. What? Go ahead.
There's no picture. I'm not seeing it.
Oh, it's okay. Just touch it. You'll see.
It's blinking though. The light's blinking.
Touch it.
Ah, there you are. Okay.
It just saves battery.
Gotcha.
They've got great torque. They now have great horsepower. And for an old guy like me, it's a really comfortable bike. And so for somebody, for me, with one primary bike that I ride all the time, it just seemed like a good choice.
And how much dirt riding have you done on this? Tell me about that.
Look, in capable hands, this bike can be ridden in really amazing off-road environments. I do not have those hands, and I don't really have a desire to get to the skill level required to take this thing off-road seriously. Now, have I ridden it on dirt, hard-packed dirt? Yes. Do I make a habit of that? No. Do I ride off-road? Yeah, but I've got a Suzuki Enduro for that. It's, probably 300 pounds lighter, that I don't mind dropping, that, does that job better than any 600-pound bike could do it. But you and I both know guys who take these things, on trips to Colorado, on trips to the desert, where they do quite a bit of off-roading. I think, though, the way this suspension is set up, because it's got more travel than most street bikes, it's really comfortable for me. It's a really forgiving, plush ride, but at the same time, in the canyons, it handles like a sport bike. I mean, it really, truly handles in the canyons in ways I don't think most people realize. Right?
And why did you go into the? I don't see it as a downgrade. I think some people don't they think that the GSA is somehow more of a bike than the GS. I don't know how do you feel about that?
I think,
having had both,
I think there are definitely reasons to get both of them, and I think most people make too big a deal out of the difference between the two. I started my YouTube channel after getting the GSA, and I started demoing some bikes for the channel. And this particular bike was a bike that I demoed at the from the local, from West Valley Cycles, and I honestly didn't think I was gonna like it that much. My bike was a 1200. This was the new 1250. And in my head, the GSA was the bike to have, not the GS at the time. And I got on this bike and I rode it for like 30 miles for the demo up in the canyons. And I think two things sort of blew me away about it. One was I did not realize how much I was going to enjoy the 1250 versus the 1200, because the 1200 is a great engine. But just the way this 1250 with that shift cam smoothed out the torque curve so that there's not that drop in the torque curve, and really just that little bit of top end that you get is an amazing improvement, and I didn't realize I was going to feel it. And I think maybe it took me riding the 1200 for a bit before I realized, or before I was capable of realizing what the improvement was with this 1250. So that was one. And two, this bike just felt so nimble to me after riding the GSA. And a lot of people say they don't feel that. A lot of people will talk about how nimble a GSA is, and it is. Like it it's a beastly looking bike because of that giant tank, but it is an incredibly nimble bike too. But something about this just felt, particularly in corners, I just felt like it was just that much more easy to get around the corner and in a faster way, and I loved it. Frankly, I loved it. And this was a 2019. It was 2020, and I feel like I got a great. This bike was sitting there on the floor, and it had been priced, I think, really high because it came with this dealer launch package that they had for these bikes on the exclusives, where it came with the BMW racks, the BMW aluminum panniers and top box that I don't have it on now. These engine guards, this extension in the front, radiator guards, basically all the bells and whistles that...
The lights too, the auxiliary lights.
Auxiliary lights, yeah. And like it's stickered out at like 28 grand. And I'm not going to say exactly what deal I got on it, but it was a pretty good deal. And I think this exclusive paint is gorgeous.
I agree. It's a beautiful bike.
I just fell in love with the bike, and I kind of the same thing. Like I was in the GSA at a pretty good price point, so I stuck it on Craigslist, and a guy from the Santa Cruz area actually called me up, and within 24 hours we had a deal, and he sent a guy down to pick it up. And
so you sold that bike basically in one day. You didn't have it up very long, right?
I think it was one day.
Wow. What do you now your last bike didn't have the TFT, but this bike has the TFT.
Yeah, TFT Display is pretty cool, and having demoed a few different brands' bikes, I think the BMW Display it's the best one I've seen. It's really sharp, it's really intuitive. The Wonder Wheel or whatever it's called is a great way to operate it. Well, look, on the GS's, the GS analog dash, I guess pre-2018 is when these digital started showing up on the GS and GSA bikes. Those analog dashes kind of suck. They're LCD, so they're hard to see in the sun. If you have the navigator on mounted, it kind of blocks your tachometer, so it's a big improvement on these bikes. It's not a necessity. You and I have talked about it. Your bike has yours has a combination of LCD and analog gauges,
and then the clocks,
that I love. And the new 2021 RTs are flipping to the TFT. It's a pretty neat setup. It looks like it's going to be a pretty neat setup on the RTs, but I don't think it's a deal killer at all to have your dash on the
You know
RTs.
what? I was just in one of our local BMW dealers. They had some RTs left over, and I would go for those because I think you can get them for a steal. I mean, I'm not the Unabomber, like I'm not anti-technology, but for me personally, I didn't see the want or the need for anything. I'd have to, you have to use your phone to operate some of that. Is that correct? Or is that not correct?
No. You need your phone if you want to use, this version of the TFT has turn-by-turn navigation through the BMW app on your phone. So you can run the app on your phone, link it to the TFT, and get turn-by-turn on the TFT itself if you don't want to run a separate navigator. I've never used that. I use my phone. I bought a Chinese adapter that goes in the blank for the navigator, and it lets you put your phone there and charge your phone off the bike. And so I just use Waze on my phone most of the time.
And that works fine for you?
I find it, to be a better way to go. And then I Bluetooth that phone into my headset in my helmet, so I hear Waze or music in my headset when I'm on the bike.
Do you have voices in your head?
I've got voices in my head.
Yeah.
I want to go back to the RT for a second.
I do too.
You and I spent some time a couple of weeks ago talking about the RT, and we sort of jokingly made it an RT versus a GS video. I think that dash that you have is really functional, really legible. I don't think the TFT is an improvement over your dash. Some people will say they want TFT and the colors. I do like what they did in the 2021 RT, putting LED lights on it. Your lights are really bright. I always know when you're behind me. I just like the white light versus the yellower light of a traditional halogen. There is no lack of visibility on your bike, and I don't think the LEDs are going to improve visibility on the RT. It's just an aesthetic preference. I like to see the white light. That, I think, to me, that's the only improvement of the 2021 over the 2020. The rest of it is, a refresh.
So, while we're talking about the RT for a second, I was thinking about this morning. If you take the bags off that bike, you have a GS. The way it is with the bags on there, you have a GS. You put the trunk on, you have a GS. Okay? I take the bags off, I have a GSXR, and I put the trunk on, and I have a GW, a Goldwing, essentially. So I feel like I've got 3 bikes in one with the RT. And I like the old video, I did ride the old one in the dirt quite a bit. Enough to where I would get what you have, a CRF 450 or a DR-400 for dirt riding. But anyway, that's beside the point. Yeah. What would you do to improve that bike that you have now, this beautiful bike? Is there anything you would change on it?
The next time I get tires on this bike, I'm going to put road tires on it. Or at least more road oriented. Not that there's anything necessarily wrong with these, but I can, having ridden it now, and as pretty as it is, I know I'm not going to do anything serious off-road on this bike. So I don't need, I think these are probably 80/20s, I don't know. But I think I'll just put a street tire on it. Kind of admitting to myself, I just am not going to do anything off-road on this bike. So that would be an improvement, I think. Beyond that, no. It is a little tall for me, by the way. I'm 5'9". This is the regular suspended GS. You can get a low suspension version, but I don't. So I'm not. Well, I guess if I put this in its lowest setting, I'm flat-footed on it, but I don't ride it in that setting because in the twisties where we ride, I just would prefer to have the ground clearance, to not ride it in that lowest setting.
Are you able to mount that bike without having to get on the peg, or so you can, from the ground, you don't have to?
I can. I usually do get on the peg, but that's more a function of my hip flexibility than it is my height. It's just more comfortable for me to step on the peg and get on. I usually don't do that when I get off. So back to the RT for a second too.
Sure.
I did a demo ride on the RT, and I'll put a link to that in the video. I love the RT. I don't think the GS is a better bike than the RT. I think it's probably a better choice for me from a comfort factor on this bike, and because I know I'm never gonna go ride from LA to New York and want a bike that's capable of doing that to any degree more than I can on this bike. And you can do it on this bike. You just don't get quite the protection that you get on your bike.
Right.
It's a cool bike. It's a really cool bike.
Do you have boots that you wear outside of your pants when you ride this bike?
No. I mean, I have a pair of Alpine Star Tech 7s that I ride in the dirt with my son.
I mean, it's really, I'm sitting here looking at it. It is a beautiful bike. And like I said, this exact bike that's on camera was one that I considered before you got, not yours, but I saw these and they had a package. It wasn't with exactly the same bags, a different set of bags, but it came with bags, and I thought about it, you know, but I'm still hung up on well, you know, the dash on the RT is very finished, and I found it's better on this new one, but on some of them you see a lot of cables and stuff. By the way, this is a total fraud t-shirt. I never had a BSA, and I've had all the bikes. I had a lot of bikes, but never a BSA, and I don't think I've ever owned a Triumph. But so I'm not anti-British bikes or anything, but it's a total fraud. The shirt, I got it at a bike shop.
I know you're not anti-British because I've seen you lust over a Triumph. What's that 1200 Scrambler?
Oh yeah, the Scrambler. Yeah, that bike.
It's called
a Scrambler. Yeah, XE or something. XC. It was the tall one with the real good components on it, and that's a beautiful bike. I'm sure somebody has one of those because they're very cool. I don't know if they're selling well. I haven't seen too many of them, but I think they're great. Now, you recently got your son more involved in riding, and I think that's any kid whose dad is helping him ride is a lucky kid, because I grew up with that, and my dad wasn't into it, but he supported it. He paid for it.
My kid, who's 14, loves it. I know he loves putting the gear on, and he loves working on the bike, and you know he's done a little bit of work on his own bike, but he really loves getting out there and getting in the dirt and riding too. And he's no daredevil, but he's getting the fundamentals, and I suspect he'll be a rider for life. In many ways, I wish he was 5 or 6 years older and I could go ride on the street with him, because we would have taken some epic trips. I think. Well,
there's time for that, and there's going to be more technology.
I'll be older then too, is the problem.
So you'll just, and maybe you'll be on an RT by then, who knows.
You were talking about components on the Triumph. Let's talk brakes for a minute. This bike and your bike are sitting here with the infamous Hayes
yes.
front calipers. How have those calipers treated you, and what are you doing about the recall, if anything?
Well, that's a really good question. They have been fine, and I don't really see any leaks. I see road dirt. I'm not a bike washer anymore either. I mean, once in a while I'll spray some of that Honda Bright, but I do when I'm inspired, but it seems like it's been about 4 years since I've washed one of my bikes.
I'm about a twice a year washer.
Okay, so I have road dirt on the brake calipers, but they have performed flawlessly. But I have decided to press the issue because it is a known problem that there's some seeping or leaking of these brakes. I haven't seen it, and nobody that I know has actually experienced it, but there is a recall, or there has been a recall, and BMW's taking care of it. I don't know how reluctant they were to get it, to start it.
I heard it's like an $1,800 pop.
It could be, but they're making money, and they are getting return customers. We're both return customers.
By the way, not to us, but $1,800 is what they pay the dealer
to take care of the problem. Yeah. So it could be. I don't know. But what I decided was to press it because I want the Brembos. There's pride of ownership with Brembo. That's one thing. But also, I had an AMF Harley. And it was a great bike, and it didn't ever have any real problems. There were unusual problems. It had its things, but it was an older, it was an 80 Ironhead Sportster AMF right on the tank. And I don't want an AMF BMW. Meaning, does it have the brake fix or does it not have the brake fixed? So I decided...
You don't want it to be an outlier.
Right. I'll get it fixed with the Brembos, and I think Brembos look great, man. I mean, and I've understood that that Brembos are monoblock calipers now, and so they're pretty tricked. They're not the same calipers that are on the 16s or mine was a 16. Yours was a 17. Not the same Brembos. So I'm excited about that. And you have a couple of things. You have some Farkles on your bike. You have the rear tail light.
I put a Denali CanSmart on this bike myself, and I ran the Denali brake light. I have some little auxiliary lights that I think they're called D2s that are Denali also. But at some point when I have some time, I think I'll mount to this engine guard. They're yellow. They're the bright yellow,
right,
which I like.
When you go to the Rock Store, which is our famous Los Angeles motorcycle place, do you see bikes that you want? Do you ever see a bike when you're there that you want more than what you have?
Kenny, I am a bike slut. I love all kinds of bikes. I lust after all kinds of bikes. I mean, we see everything up there, from Jay Leno pulling up on a jet bike to, OG bikers on rigid panhead choppers to, $30,000 Ducatis. And I love all of them, I think. I mean, I don't like obnoxiously loud bikes that are just loud to be loud. I love the sound.
Unless it's a two-stroke.
Yeah, but that's part of it too. It's inherent to a two-stroke, right?
Yeah.
I love the sound that an air-cooled V-twin makes. And there's volume that's part of that, but I don't like it when people put pipes on that are intentionally just obnoxious.
I don't really I think about it a lot. I mean, I think about bikes a lot. I was watching Supercross last night. And I'm old now. And I look at those doubles wondering if I can make it. Is there anything that I want more?
There's nothing I want more.
Nothing I want more. No, I think for right now, this has got everything I want. I wanted to mention something that I've never told anybody, but it's what got me interested in sport touring bikes at all. There's a photograph somewhere of Craig Breedlove, who was the fastest man in the world, and he was on a blue Buell Thunderbolt. I think he was in short pants. It had saddlebag. I think it was a Thunderbolt. Maybe it was a Lightning Bolt. I don't know. I'm not sure about Buell's, which one's which. It was not a Ulysses, that I know. But it was their sport touring bike with bags. And it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. I just thought, wait a minute, that guy could ride anything. And that was what he chose. And I tried to figure out why. And now I understand where, it's, for me, like, I get the Harley. When I ride with my daughter, which is rare now, but when I do, I miss the Harley, because when I would have to reach back, I had a backrest on it, but I couldn't even feel her on the back of the bike. And on this bike, if I have her on the back with the trunk on, even if she just tilts her head, it changes or upsets the
equilibrium.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm at a stoplight and she just wants to look around me, I can feel it. None of that was the case of the Harley. It was so much lower to the ground. So, I get the Harley thing, but I'm over it, and I still have a vest, but I got rid of. I don't have any wallets with chains anymore or any of that. Do you have that? Do you have a chain wallet?
No, but it's funny you say that. I thought about getting one, not so much for the Harley, but every once in a while I find myself riding with my wallet in my back pocket, and I worry a little bit that it's gonna somehow sneak out. Well,
so you ride in fear?
No.
You're living in fear?
No. But so hearing you talk about Harleys, I will admit this. There's a piece of me as an American that wants to be on an American bike. And I'm not sure whether it's patriotism or whether it's just sort of in my blood. Like, if I think back to being a kid, I mean, like a little kid, and pretending my bicycle was a motorcycle, or pretending that, you know, the broom was a motorcycle. In my mind's eye, that motorcycle was a Harley.
Wow.
I just hope they figure out a way to stay relevant, to keep riders interested in riding Harleys. Because I think it'd be really sad if they don't.
I like that one better.
Hey Kenny, thanks for doing this with me. If you're out there enjoying the channel, I hope you'll subscribe, and we won't mind if you hit the like button either. And we'll see you next time.
Peace.